Welcome back to the Pig Trail Show. As always, we have our Hog Hoops insider, Kevin McPherson, joining us now to talk all things Razorback basketball. And it feels good to say this, Kevin, but we're finally getting to go on this show and talk about the Razorbacks going 2-0 in a single week in the SEC slate, which just feels so weird to say, but they went 2-0 this week. So we have wins to talk about and good wins to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, look, Arkansas, you mentioned it. You have to go back to non-conference play where Arkansas strung together back-to-back wins. We're now 14 games with 4 more to go in SEC play. Arkansas's 5-9, but those back-to-back wins, you mentioned it, not only on the road against A&M, which is a quad one win, Arkansas' second of the season. That's a big deal. I mean, you have to keep it relative to the fact that this is not Arkansas team trending for an at-large bid. But still, you want to get some quality wins, not just start winning games. You like some quality wins. That's a quality win on the road, a struggling A&M team. And at Mizzou, but you've also swept both of these teams in the home and away series now. So these back-to-back wins, first consecutive wins for Arkansas in SEC play, and the Razorbacks were able to sew up a couple of sweeps in the home and away series against both of those schools. And so I think, for a lot of fans that are disappointed in the trajectory of the season, winning is better than the alternative. And with Eric Melsman coach teams, they always get better. You wanted to see this earlier or sooner. But again, it's better late than never. And Arkansas, still with 4 games to go in league play, technically has a shot at not being below 500 in league play. If Arkansas wins out and continues to win, it's 9-9 to finish their conference record. That may be a consolation prize if you're not looking at March and advancing in March and getting into the NCAA tournament. But again, it's better than the alternative. And Arkansas, there's several things we've got to talk about, individual players and some other stuff when we look ahead at the SEC tournament, where maybe there's a sliver of hope for Arkansas to make a real run and give itself a chance.
Absolutely. And we're going to talk about all those things, like you said. But if you look on social media right now, the talk of the town is one guy and one guy only, and that's Khalif Battle, because of his monster 42-point performance. That feels so crazy to even utter on the show. 42 points he put up against the Missouri Tigers on Saturday in Bud Walton Arena. It really was an offensive just show of excellence. And even Eric Musselman said that might have been the best offensive performance that he's ever seen as well, just from a player, because it was just so good all around on the stat sheet. Kevin, what are your thoughts on his performance?
Well, I mean, if I'm Khalif Battle today, I've got my camp. I'm circling everybody up, and I'm like, let's get these Battle Buckets T-shirts printed. Let's get them printed. Let's get them out there. I mean, you got to capitalize on a game like that. Look, it's the second highest point total in a game for a Razorback in SEC play, next to Todd Day, the all-time leading scorer in the program, who was a bucket in his own right. Obviously, that was a road win over LSU and Shaquille O'Neal back in the day. A lot of elite players in that matchup at 43 points. This came 1 point shy. I think it's the 7th most points scored by a Razorback in history. I think Rodney Clark holds the record at 51. But you start thinking about it. I mean, you've had 2 games now in Bud Walton Arena where you had Wade Taylor with A&M going off for 41, Tremont Mark going off for a career high 35, and Mark hits the game winner after Taylor hit a shot to put A&M up. Mark hits the game winner at the buzzer. So you love that win for Arkansas, but you hated it that Wade Taylor had more points. Well, Khalif Battle just one-upped him. The most points in Bud Walton to this point now this season. And we've seen guys for other teams have big games, but we see Razorbacks. I mentioned Mark, but 42 points. I mean, what an outstanding performance. When you looked at Khalif Battle, he's really struggled in league play. The last 3 games, though, obviously he didn't get to close to 42 in the previous 2 games, but he was scoring in double figures. Pretty efficient with 18 points in that road loss at Mississippi State. Not as efficient in the road win over A&M, but he still scored 15 points, made most of his free throws in that game. So you started to see his offense come alive. And a guy like that, I don't know that anyone envisioned him scoring 42. That was a career high for Arkansas. But you imagined a lot more 20-plus games like he was getting in November and December, sometimes against lesser competition. He had that big game in that win over Duke, by the way, and Arkansas's other quad one win. Let's not forget that. But you were hoping to see more of a guy that could, step up and do a lot of what Tremont Mark has done consistently, and that's give Arkansas a second option. He is Arkansas' second leading scorer on the season, even after a lot of those drought games where he didn't scratch or 2 or 3 points, still maintained a double figure scoring average because of some of the work he did with 4 or 5 20-plus games in non-conference. But it was really good to see Khalif Battle made all of his free throws, 14 of 14, 6 of 10 from three, which fueled Arkansas's 10 of 25. You rarely see Arkansas shoot 40% from three, certainly not on that volume. Most of that was him, obviously. And then he was also good getting to the rim, the guy that was just efficient, also chipped in 6 rebounds. What a game for Khalif Battle.
It really was. And we could talk about him all day long, but we can't give him all the credit when it comes to even that Texas A&M win, because I even tweeted out, I think after their win over the Aggies earlier in the week, I said, the emergence of Maik Mitchell has been my favorite storyline this season. And that still holds true because I love to see him do really, really well this kind of late into SEC play. And the reason for that is because he needed to step up with Trevin Brazile on the bench, with Jalen Graham, with your big men sitting on the bench due to injuries. He was the guy that needed to step up, and he really did in that Texas A&M win. Talk about him, talk about Tremont Mark stepping up, even Devo Davis. I mean, some of these other guys that have really helped the Razorbacks get off to, I could say, a little bit of hope, right? A little bit of these wins stringing together due to some of these other players as well.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned Maik Mitchell just coming off back-to-back games on the road where he established career highs in points. He had a double-double in the win at A&M, 22 points, 13 rebounds. And in a game where one guy's scoring 42, you're like, well, there's probably not a lot of other guys, scoring a ton, but he hit 13 points, 6 rebounds, 3 assists. I always look at Maik Mitchell as a passer, too. He's really good setting up guards that are cutting, and he's a good passer. So he does a lot of good things playing out of those screen games. You see a lot of teams throwing zone at Arkansas, zone defense. We've seen it 3 games in a row now where there's been a heavy dose of it. And you see Arkansas running screen and zone 1 out of that and still playing screen game with Maik. So he's very effective. But yeah, he's been averaging double figures in these last 8 games or so. He's had 3 double doubles in that stretch, and it's a good reason why Arkansas is 4-3 in its last 7 games is Maik Mitchell. You mentioned Tremont Mark, 26 points in that road win against A&M, 22 in the second half. He was, you start thinking about Mark again when I go back to that first A&M win. He and Wade Taylor going back and forth. Yesterday it was Battle and Sean East, right, from Missouri, 33 points. But Mark wasn't his game necessarily on offense, but he still pitches in 10 points, was 2 of 3 from 3. I think he had 6 or 7 rebounds and 3 assists himself. So here's a guy that continues to stuff the stat sheet. If we went back to the first half of the season, he was consistently Arkansas's leading scorer, but he wasn't always a big rebounder. He wasn't necessarily getting those hustle stats. And more, especially during this run, this 4-3 last 7 games, you're seeing more of that from him. Big rebounding games, blocking shots, getting steals, dishing the ball. So he's doing more. That's how you start getting your season to turn around. And then you mentioned Devo Davis. He's a guy that we know where Devo's been this season. We know it's not been one of his, the season's probably been out of 4 years, not the least of all of them in terms of his production and some other things, some efficiency stuff as well. But a big game from him as well. He steps up, 8 points, leads the team with 9 rebounds, game high 6 assists on a night when Arkansas had 16 assists on 20 plus made field goals. So they assisted on over half of their made field goals, but he was a big part of that. And he had a block and a steal as well. So he really had a good floor game. Look, this is not a good Missouri team, still winless in league play. This is as bad as Arkansas seasons looked at times. This is a really bad SEC team. Arkansas swept these guys. And you look at Arkansas's had offensive problems in the past, most of the SEC play, but 91 points in the road win at Mizzou, 88. Those are the 2 high water marks in league play. So you have to take some of this with, a grain of salt. But at the same time, it wasn't just 42 points from Khalif Battle. You had other guys really step up and give Arkansas a shot in the arm. And then we saw the return of Trevor Brazile. He played 4 first-half minutes. I don't think he scratched a stat, but he did see the court. He'd been out for 7 straight games, so we don't even know how you acclimate him moving forward, what that looks like. Jalen Graham may be back in the fold soon. Musman said in the midweek press conference he'd be back soon. Keon Minifield Jr. has been day-to-day. It seems to me like less has been more for this team. Arkansas is playing better with fewer options for Musman to puzzle over and just send guys in and out. He likes a tight rotation, and lately, by default, I think it's helped guys like Maik Mitchell and L. Ellis at times, Khalif Battle, who's been in the starting lineup. It's helped other guys step up their level of play. because you can't take them off the court. You haven't had enough bodies.
Absolutely, Kevin. And again, like I said before about Caleb, we could talk all day about these guys and how they've been performing in the most recent contest. But I do want to ask you, because this is a question on everybody's mind right now. You know, I see all over social media, people are like, is there hope for an at-large bid? Is there hope? I mean, with 4 games left, it just doesn't feel like, even if they go and win out all and win these last 4 regular season SEC contests, when you look at that net ranking, it's like those blowout losses are still affecting them so much there, to where it's like right now, I feel like you have to look at it like this. You got to go into the SEC tournament feeling good and possibly win the whole thing to get an automatic bid. Is that how you're feeling, or do you see it differently?
Yeah, I think Arkansas's. I think so. Let's do a win out, except and you get to the SEC tournament finals, but lose there. Then you have to. Then you're looking at what is your at-large resume? If Arkansas were to win their next 4 games, I mean, you can't lose to Vanderbilt on Tuesday. That's not going to help your net. It's a low net team. It just keeps you from having another bad loss. So you got to win that. Then you've got in 3 games, you're on the road at Kentucky. You come home for LSU, and you're on the road for Bama. Kentucky or Bama would be 2 quad 1 wins. LSU is only going to be a quad 3 value. You've got to win that at home. By the way, if Arkansas wins, Arkansas is now 2 wins out of their last 4 games away from finishing with above water going into the SEC tournament. So if they split the next 2, they're 16 and 15, can't finish with an overall losing record. But to get back to your question, I think Arkansas, if the Razorbacks were to win these last 4 regular season games, they pick up 2 more quad 1 wins. Their quad 1 record then would be either 4-7 or 4-8. Right now it's 2-7. One of those could flip back if Ole Miss surges a little bit and gets back. It's 76 coming in today. It needs to be in the top 75. So that slipped to a quad 2 road loss. It could end up being quad 1. So if Arkansas wins out regular season, they'd double their quad 1 wins. They'd be on a significant winning streak, 6 games in a row. And so you start to think, okay, is there an at-large opportunity? I think also what we see is with Arkansas, with the results over the weekend, Arkansas has been stuck in 12th place for weeks. They've actually moved into a tie with Georgia for 11th. They have the same league record with 3 teams above them, only 1 game ahead: A&M, LSU, and Ole Miss. And so Arkansas's got a chance to leapfrog at least one of those, getting the 10th spot. And the 10th spot means you don't play that Wednesday first round game. You get a bye to the Thursday game, and you only need 4 wins in 4 days. So by winning out, you improve your at-large resume. You also move up. Arkansas would finish 9-9 in the regular season in that scenario in league play. They'd be 18 and 13 overall. So to kind of get to wrap it, to bow it up, if you only had 4 games in 4 days, and you're the 10 seed, the 7 seed, and anybody you play after that is likely going to be more quad 1 wins. If Arkansas won 3 of those 4 to get to the finals, that'd be 3 more quad 1 wins. If their record in quad 1 at the end of the regular season by winning out was 4-7, they'd be 7-7 in quad 1 games. That's, they'd be 21. So if they lost in the SEC tournament, they'd be 21 and 14 overall, 7-7 in quad 1s. They'd have an awful quad 2 record, like 1-5, something like that. But 7-1 in quad 3, 4-0 in quad 4. They might be on the bubble with a chance to sneak in, Courtney. Ooh. It took me a long time to get there, but you have to go through some of that to explain it, because you'd have a 9-1 finish in your last 10 games. You picked up, you've basically quadrupled your quad 1 resume. And then some of these SEC teams that have been projected in are starting to backslide. And you need teams like that in the SEC that were ahead of you to backslide in their resume, and teams from other leagues. But when you're winning this time of year, there are going to be enough teams that are not doing as well. So you're kind of maybe swapping places with some, not only in your own league or elsewhere. You might have just good enough resume to slip in that way. Likely, this is an unlikely scenario. The other reality is, Courtney, all of Arkansas's league wins at 5-9 are against teams with sub 500 records in league play. They've been blown out. They're 0-7 against teams in the top half of the league with league winning records, 0-6. And they've lost those games by an average of 18 points per game. So we don't want to get over our skis and suggest this can happen, because when Arkansas gets in more of these quad 1 games, it's going to be tough, especially on the road. They did it against A&M, but that's a good matchup, and A&M's lost 4 games in a row now. Just got beat by 30 plus points at Tennessee yesterday. So you have to have some perspective on it. But mathematically, yeah, I think there's a sliver of hope. Even if you don't win the SEC tournament to get to the finals and be on the bubble with a chance to sneak in, you probably got to win the SEC tournament. The Hogs are playing their best basketball, but they got to start proving it against the top half of the league when they start meeting some of these teams. When we look at Kentucky on the road, Alabama, and then when they get in the SEC tournament.
Absolutely, Kevin. But you're saying there's a chance. There's a chance. I'm just kidding. I'm just trying to get Hog fans' hopes up. For me, I look at it and it's like that is a scenario. It's a very low chance scenario, but that is a scenario. For me, it looks like, hey, you're fighting to get a bid for the NIT, honestly. You're fighting to see if you play some postseason basketball, right? I mean, that's the reality is what we're looking at.
That's the reality, because the net ranking, by the way, in the one teens right now, it has moved up about 15 or 14 spots from where it was before these 2 wins. So I'm projecting if Arkansas were to have a run like that and get to the finals and lose there and pick up 5 quad 1 wins between now and then, I'm projecting the net might be somewhere between 65 and 75. I think the worst net ranking ever to get an at-large bid was 77 by Rutgers.
Oh, wow.
Years. So you might be in that range. That's what I'm saying. But you're right. It's probably at best an NIT if you don't win the SEC tournament. If you win the SEC tournament, you get the automatic bid and you're in. Hey. Arkansas has a team. The only time it ever won the SEC tournament, 1999, 2000, Joe Johnson, future Hall of Famer, Naismith Hall of Famer, great NBA player as a freshman, helped Arkansas win the SEC tournament. Otherwise, that team was looking at the NIT, and they made the NCAA tournament, loss in the first round to Miami and Nashville, but they made it by winning the tournament. It's the only time an Arkansas team in 30 plus years in the SEC has won an SEC tournament. So, there's a couple of paths. That's really the most likely. The other one I went through, long-winded gas, with all that hot air, I think would give them a chance, but we might be looking at IT, and that may not even happen.
Yeah, I mean, you still have to be, I think I was looking at it. They like to take, if you're in that like 70 to 100 range for the NIT, it's like if you're below that in the net, I guess you've got to be really, really looked at. So again, I think it's just fighting to see that maybe postseason basketball, because I would hate for them to not be playing at all. I feel like some Hog fans are with me there, but we have some more to talk about on the show really quickly. Jaylen Shelly was there at the game yesterday for the Hogs. I saw some pictures of him and Coach Muss. Talk about that a little bit, Kevin.
Arkansas signee, class of 2024, signed in the early November period at Link Academy over there in Branson, not far away. It's his second game in February, second home game to come in and see his future school, but a top 100, 4-star, 6'7", 6'8", combo forward, kind of took the path from the Dallas-Fort Worth area to Link, similar to Jordan Walsh, the 5-star, who was a one and done. A little bit of a similar path there, similar position, kind of a versatile guy that can defend multiple positions, defend backcourt guys and front court guys. I project him as a 3-4 at the next level for the Razorbacks. That is on the Division I high major level. But he was in the house and got to see Arkansas win by 15 points again. Arkansas's largest winning margin out of 5 league wins, the only one in double digits. And so it was a good, lately we've seen this. You and I have been in there and seen it in person. The crowds are sparse now. The crowds are sparse. But when you pack 20,000 in there, typically, even sparse crowds there are better than they are in a lot of places around the league. It's still, it may not be the same atmosphere, but it's still one of the best places to play in college basketball. So Jaylen Shelly got a taste of that on Saturday.
I absolutely love that. And really quickly, Kevin, because we normally don't talk about women's basketball in this show, but I do want to get your quick thoughts on the women's team really quickly, because there is a chance for them to go dancing this year. And that is a real possibility for this Mike Neighbors squad. Now, they are playing, fair warning, they are playing Vanderbilt right now. They just started the second half. So we were talking, they just started the second half, and Arkansas's down by 1 to Vanderbilt. Obviously, they've got to finish the regular season strong. They have South Carolina still on that regular season slate. And man, I don't think they're going to beat the Gamecocks and Don Staley, but they can finish out strong, Kevin, and maybe possibly make their resume good enough for an at-large bid. Do you think so?
Yes, I do. And these are 2 teams that are effectively on the bubble playing today. So that 1-point margin coming out of halftime is a microcosm of where they are within each other this late in the season and on the bubble. I think Vanderbilt is one of the last 4 teams in. Arkansas is projected as one of the first 4 out. So these teams, winner here doesn't necessarily take all. I think both teams still have work to do, but I think this is obviously a big opportunity for both teams. Uh, Fighting on the bubble, they're fighting each other for bubble survival, and so the women's team is in better position, obviously, than the men's team. And this is a situation where everything's in, they control their own destiny. In other words, to make the NCAA tournament won't be easy, and they probably still have work to do after today. But heavy advantage goes to winner of this one, in my opinion.
Absolutely. And so you want to see them get this win and then possibly, I mean, even if you lose to South Carolina, if you can at least make that game competitive, I know that counts in those net rankings that they're like, okay,
Right.
it's not a blowout loss. I mean, that could even help them. So I know that they're thinking about those things strategically before heading into the SEC tournament, but we'll talk a little bit more about women's basketball as they progress through the rest of the regular season and then the SEC tournament as well. But thank you so much, as always, for joining us, Kevin, and talking some hoops on this Sunday. We'll see you next Sunday to chat more basketball. And that's going to do it for us. We'll have more Pig Trail Show coming up after the break.